Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another Fit Nation Lunch and Learn. Today, we are joined by Carl Smith. Carl, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to join us today.
Very welcome. Very welcome.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And you and I have first had the chance in order to meet, not even person to person. I actually first learned about you from watching some of the videos that we had in our company that were highlighting some of the amazing things that Exercise for Less was doing with technology and using it to empower their personal training department as well. So that's how I've actually first learned about you and all of the great things that you're doing. But for those who haven't had the chance, in order to know who you are, what you're up to, could you spend a little time talking to us about how long you've been working within fitness, how'd you first landed in the world of a career, and yeah, telling us a bit about your story.
Yeah, sure. I guess it's how far back do you want me to go? The older you get, the more you've got to talk about, and the uh, the less likelihood there is of you actually wanting to know my full story. But you said we've got an hour, and I'm used to 20 minutes. If you like, I could spend probably an hour on this question. I'm kidding. Um, if I go back to probably I started training when I was 15 years old. and I enjoyed lifting weights. I enjoyed how it made me feel. I enjoyed what it did for me. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about lifting weights and training in that manner was that I was only accountable to me. I got involved in team sports where potentially you could play at 120% of your game, but your teammates play at 80 and you lose, but you put all the effort in. So I was probably quite selfish in terms of the way I like to sort of, um, uh, selfish in the way I like to spend my time, I suppose. So if I'm going to put 110% into something, I want the rewards from it. So I was, I probably haven't had a day off lifting weights, and I'm 49 now. Um, in in those years, I suppose. So I've always trained. I've always had um, an active interest in training, and I suppose it was natural for me to get into the fitness industry, but. It probably wasn't because where I live, there weren't any gyms when I was growing up, and and it wasn't the industry that it is now. So I ended up falling into sales for maybe 4, 5, 6 years between sort of ages of 18 and sort of 25, 26. Until eventually, I think my partner at the time said to me, I'm sick of you coming home miserable. Why don't you do something you enjoy? And I sort of said, well, what's that? She says, well, every time we go out, you spend more time talking about training than you do with me. So why don't you get a job doing that? I said, is that a job? Personal trainers then were training movie stars. They weren't training, the people that we train now. Eventually, I found a job as a fitness consultant, literally showing people around the gym. I took a bit of a pay cut to do that. But I tell you what, I was much happier. I was coming home. I was enthused by what I was doing, and I suppose I was excelling at that particular role. And it didn't take me long to decide. Then, look, I'm going to give personal training a go. And I did. When I did, I didn't know what a personal trainer was. I got this job. I went for a job as a fitness consultant and walked away with a job as a personal trainer. Had to sell that back to my wife that I was going to have to pay to go to work. She didn't quite grasp the concept, and it was brand new to me. Having to pay a rent in exchange for an opportunity to make the money you wanted to make. So I took the opportunity and gave it a really good go for a good sort of 3 months, and fell over a few clients is kind of what I tell people. I obviously fought over them, but people approached me and I probably had about seven or eight clients at the time, and it wasn't enough to make a business. It wasn't enough to be successful, and certainly wasn't enough to pay my bills. So as much as I was enjoying it, something had to change. So I ended up stumbling across a sales course online that taught me how to form a process, taught me how to taught me how to sell personal training in yeah, just taught me how to sell personal training. And I basically listened to this seminar that I'd bought for $99 or your money back for hours and hours. I think I bought the course on Thursday and I listened to it all the Friday, and it was only an hour and a half. I just kept repeating it. I listened to it all on Saturday, all on Sunday. And then Monday, I walked into the gym, and by the end of Monday night, I'd walked away with just short of £1,000 in income. And I'd never done that. And from there, my business grew very quickly from those 7 sessions to 40 sessions a week. And within 6 months of that, I was the fitness manager in the gym. Within 6 weeks after that, I was the general manager of that gym for another 7 years. And that's, I suppose, how my journey began. And where I am now, I've started up my own business, Concept Fitness Consultancy, and the focus of my business is to help personal trainers with their next steps, focusing particularly on new personal trainers that have just completed the qualification, that need, I suppose, the help that I didn't get but stumbled across, that got me on my way. So too, I'll take a breath.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I know that many people are going to ask, because of those incredible results of what you were able to put together in that day, but what was the book that or the course that you took that kicked it off and allowed you to go in and dominate on that day of sales?
Do you know, it was I don't want to disrespect the course in any way, but it was just a basic sales course that put things into perspective for me. So you know, rather than what I had literally no process. I literally walked the gym floor and talked to members. I didn't talk to them about booking them in for an appointment to sit down and have a consultation. I literally just talked to them, in the hope that they might sell personal training to me for themselves, I suppose. You know, I got the first 7 clients I was so lucky with, because they literally approached me and said, are you a personal trainer? How much is 10 sessions? And I kind of had an idea in my head of what it might look like, and I presented it and they bought it. That's not selling personal training. That's not building a business. It's not, there's no process, there's no structure to what I was doing. But I got lucky, I suppose, but that's not lucky enough. So yeah, it was a course by a guy called Pat Necrotaro, who I believe now he's now taken his sales process away from personal training and fitness businesses, and has now moved that to focusing on accountants and the financial world. Interesting, Derek, you might come across him in the future, but the guy made such a massive difference to my career. Effectively, what I bought was a seminar, which was an hour and a half, talking to me about the process and how it all worked, and a consultation form. And that one tool, that consultation form, was the thing that made the biggest difference in my entire PT career. It literally gave you the opportunity to sit down, have a conversation with somebody about their goals, understand their needs, and then suddenly you start to put 2 and 2 together. And then, you know, if you know what somebody wants, it's so much easier to sell to them, right?
100%. I got a bold statement, and I'm gonna just say it, and you either knock it down or you can add on. But this is gonna be a bit of an interesting one when it comes to trainers. So the statement is: it doesn't matter if you're a good trainer. If you can market or sell yourself better, you'll outperform even trainers who can drive better results to their clients. What do you think about that?
I suppose the front end, 100%. However, I suppose it depends where you deliver yourself. If you're online and the world's your oyster in terms of, you know, however many billion people you've got to market to, then yeah, I would probably agree with that. In a commercial setting, in a gym, it doesn't take too long before you're your dissatisfied clients will spread the word about how shit you are, and and suddenly you won't be getting any new business. So I think you need to have the skills. You need to be good at what you do. You need to be passionate. I think you need to care about people. I think helping people is something that I think should be the first driver in terms of being a PT. Ultimately, I think if you're really good at marketing and you're not good at being a PT, market something else.
Yep. Yeah, and maybe we can tackle this in a couple of different ways, because your experience from growing exercise for less from 3 locations to over 50 locations, and your focus within training gives us a possibility in order to sit here and discuss a lot of things related to training, as well as to fitness facilities. Maybe we can start a little bit with what it takes in order to be a trainer and successful today as a trainer. One of the things that you mentioned was that when you first started off, training was something that was more for celebrities to do, and you're not training the people who are training today. In your opinion, how is going into a career of training now different from when you first entered the industry, and what are the things that is important to succeed as a trainer today?
I think it's certainly more acceptable for the general public to have a personal trainer. It's more acceptable to ask for help nowadays, which I think, previously, and certainly when I started, personal training was such a new thing. There was this connotation that it carried a high ticket price that you couldn't afford. So potentially people didn't ask. I think that with the coming of sort of commercial gyms and that model that had upwards of 10, 15 personal trainers in a club, suddenly made that a more viable product for people. So I definitely think that it's easier to sell personal training now than it ever has been. I would argue that there are probably, well, for a fact, there are more personal trainers than there ever have been also. I was talking to a colleague the other day that I think in the UK alone, I think we believe we have about 550 training providers. So if those training providers are churning out 10 trainers a month, for example, and there'll be some doing more, there'll be some doing less. But if we took a number, like, you're looking at about 5,000, so 60,000 personal trainers a year gaining qualification, which is a lot of people, a lot of trainers. But I do think there's a lot of fitness businesses, and there are in the UK we've got 57, 60 million people. So there's an absolute need for support. We've just gone through we're going through, aren't we, a pandemic that targets people that haven't got the best health. So I think probably that now more than ever, personal training is a viable product for people. In terms of what I think, did you ask the question about what you need to be successful as a trainer? I
Yep.
think, in today's society, the successful personal trainers have an ability to communicate well. Not only do they want to help people, they have an ability to talk to people, and that will make or break a personal trainer. Certainly in a commercial setting, I mean, it is different online to some degree, certainly picking up clients. But if you're marketing to somebody and you're working in the commercial gym setting, then you need to be a people person. You need to be able to speak to people, and put yourself into uncomfortable positions. I don't mean demonstrating exercises. What I mean is that it's sometimes people find it quite awkward. That old kind of PT comes into the manager's office and he stood around reception and just gets told, go walk the floor. What do I do? What is walking the floor? Well, walking the floor is speaking to people with a purpose. And often we don't get that when we get started. We don't understand what that purpose should be. Well, that purpose should be trying to book somebody in for a consultation, so you can sit down and work out how you can help them. Um, so, but it's having the skills and having the ability, I suppose, to communicate like that, and have a reason to talk to people. You know, just walking up to somebody saying, "Would you like to book in for a consultation?" is probably not the right script.
Yeah, I'm gonna be coming back to the walking the floor a little bit later when we get to, talking to about, how to run the facility and some best practices there. But one of the things that I was curious about that I wanted to jump towards as well is you mentioned that there's a lot of trainers now who come out of these certifications and are on the path in order to become personal trainers. I think anybody who's listening today knows that it's the failure rate is quite high. Many people go into it and they don't necessarily stick with it.
Uh,
In your opinion, what are some of the common mistakes that you see that are made by those who set off on the path to become personal trainers, and maybe what are some of the ways that they can correct some of those mistakes so that they set off on the right foot?
yeah, there's a bunch of things. I think that probably and it is anecdotal, but I think there's a lot of trainers that like training, enjoy being in the gym, and think it looks like it's a pretty cool job to be a PT, without understanding that certainly in the UK, that around about 80% of the roles are self-employed, and there seems to be a disconnect between the fitness businesses that are, I'm not going to say employing these trainers, they're engaging them because they're not employed, and the trainers leaving the qualification. There's nowhere in enough detail in either the course or the training usually provided by the fitness business. And again, this is not me disrespecting fitness businesses, but I do think that there's a general lack of understanding from the majority of personal trainers that don't succeed, that it's a self-employed role, and actually you need to source your own support. You need to understand that when you get into that role on day one, that you don't waste any time, because I know for myself that the model that I fell into, I suppose, was you got 1 month free after you paid your license fee. The second month you paid a small amount of rent and you did some hours, and then as you dropped your hours over the course of 4 months, you paid more rent till eventually you were paying. At the time, it was £100 a week in rent, and then you weren't doing any hours. The assumption from the provider is that 3 to 4 months incubation period is enough for you to build your business, and then suddenly you're going to be cool at month 4 or 5. Turns out, pretty much most people are not, and mainly because you in the first couple of months you don't really know what you're doing because you're learning. My advice would be to learn that stuff before you got started, but it's just typically not the way that the business is done. Typically, somebody gets qualified, and within weeks they're operating in a gym. You need to take the time to work out who your audience is, work out who you want to help, and work on your brand. If it's building a website, build a website. If you've got depending on your market, which social media platforms you need to be on, creating a profile, all that kind of fun stuff you need to do before you get started, and then work out what your product is. So what are you selling? Are you still selling 5 or 10 sessions? Because I think gone are the days of doing that. You need to have a product now, a clearly defined product, and then understand how you're going to help people with your product. And then you're going to need some time to whether it's role playing or whether it's having a period of time where you actually pitch people your offering to a point where you can pitch it professionally. Because if you're pitching it the first time, you're going to say something out of turn, you're going to say it wrong, you're not going to do it with confidence, and potentially if it takes you 5 months to learn how to pitch your product, you could have been losing business left, right, and centre all the way along the way until you get to that 6 month, 7 month, sorry, 4 or 5 month period, and suddenly you can't afford to pay the bills. You rent's more than you can afford than you're making, and you leave. And I think that is the what tends to break a lot of PTs. I mean, the numbers that I'm familiar with are, the average PT in the UK, and I'm sure this is not just the UK, but the longevity is 6 months. Well, that's shit.
Mhm.
6 months says to me that typically that is that point. It's where you've sort of given it your best, or given it 6 months, whether it was your best, but you've given it a length of time, and suddenly you're just not generating the income. Well, why aren't you? If you were passionate enough in the first place to do your qualification, you're passionate enough to help people, and you wanted to give it your best shot, then it's usually skill set than it's more skill than will, I suppose. So, hence me thinking that there's an absolute place for a business like mine, which ultimately supports that disconnect. So spend time with a coach, and I totally appreciate, a lot of trainers have spent a lot of money on the qualification and just want to be starting to recoup that income, but you never will if you don't get the skills in place before you get going.
And I think, Carl, just from talking about that, we can agree that the complexity of personal training over the past 10 to 20 years has really skyrocketed. So we've already talked about like the processes. It used to be just the basic process. Now it's almost running like some kind of sales system, going after value propositions, etc. We also see that there's new certifications all the time, which basically means the scientific element of personal trainer are constantly being one-upped, etc. But what also comes into it, what I think of as from my experience as well, is, personal training went from kind of like a primary focus on fitness to now a personal trainer has to be an expert in a little bit of all pillars of wellness. So curious how you saw how you've seen the transition, and if in concept you also kind of recommend this is not just the fitness element, but kind of like holistic wellness. So giving a more complete package of really an entire wellness system. So nutrition, maybe even mindfulness, and some different other routines, etc.
Definitely, I definitely think that that certainly from my visits to the States, that you guys tend to be a good few years ahead of certainly the UK in terms of progressive ideas. What I certainly saw in the States was absolutely what you're saying, is that there was a focus on wellness and mindfulness and probably even more functional specific training prior to us grasping it. I think in the UK over the last couple of years that mindfulness has become a lot more current, but I don't think it's there yet. What I do certainly see is that with our level 3 qualification for personal training hasn't changed very much in the last 20 years. So what we're teaching our trainers to get the basic qualification hasn't really changed. I mean, yes, there's been a couple of tweaks. There's been a little bit of business added into the Active IQ framework, but it hasn't really fundamentally changed in 20 odd years. What has changed, you're right, is the different kind of CPDs that are available for trainers to take part in. But then at that point, it becomes once you've got your qualification, then when you start to think about specializing and what are those qualifications, that's another minefield for trainers if they've just got started. So, my recommendation would be, do the business side of things first, and then get some experience, and then work out who you want to help more specifically. I think online, certainly in the last 13 months for me, I've become very much more aware of how specificity is crucial when you're running an online offering. And you mentioned being a specialist. if you look at the average personal trainer on Instagram now is a super specialist in some kind of area, because that's the way to do it. You know, I mean, I'm talking about defining your specialism to fathers between the ages of 25 and 26 who struggle with their weight and also live in a particular postcode. As specific as you can be helps your message resonate with the person reading it. That for me was a real contrary to what I had understood previously. So when I started, I wanted to be all things to all people. You know, I wanted to help the marathon runner. I wanted to help the lady that wanted to lose some weight. That I wanted to help the bodybuilder. And when you transfer that business online, that doesn't work, because if you speak so generally, no one's listening to you. So yeah, I think in terms of specificity, that certainly is something that has changed and is becoming. I think people are becoming more conscious of that.
Yeah, go ahead, Kellen.
Yeah, this is something that like I'm always super curious about how to actually execute. I've read about people saying you need to nail down your niche, but I always see that in the practice of doing of running a PT business, when you have somebody who's approaching you, and let's say your niche was exactly what you defined, you know, somebody within their 20s, they're a father, and etc. I don't. 9 times out of 10, I feel like the personal trainer who maybe has carved that out as their niche, but a 40-year-old mother who's overweight is reaching out to him. He's going to take that business. Should he turn that business away in order to stay true to his niche, and because it'll help him grow later? Or is there a way that he should be juggling this with making money as well? Because you kind of feel that
100%. You're right. You know, and that's the fear, is that you're alienating some of the market that is effectively going to pay your bills before you get there. So, however, I think the best advice I can offer right now is that yes, if you've chosen a specific field to work in, then the amount of work that it takes to get a product ready for that particular niche, so to speak, means that you only, as a PT, you've only got so much time, and like it or not, you're selling time. So if, for example, let's talk about bespoke programs, for example. You know, there are still trainers that sell a program, and how long does it take you to go and generate that program? So the average PT is probably still selling a program for their hourly rate, but they're probably also going to show them around that program, which is the hour. So where did we factor in the cost of generating this program? So if however you have a specific niche and a specific person that you're wanting to support, you will have already written the program. You might have already written the whole progressive program from A to B for the full year for 24 months. If you've already created the program for that individual, then when you meet your niche, that work's done. You're not, although they're getting a personalized program, you have personalized it but you personalized it before you met them. So what that does is save you time in the long run, so that then that person gets great results, great service, and refers friends who are like them. And ultimately, you become a better PT because you're helping people that you're comfortable with. You're helping people that you have the skill set to help. And it allows you to spend time focusing on the main thing, which is actually clients, as opposed to all the other stuff that we can very easily get trapped into spending time. You know, I was telling a colleague just before our call that, and he said, "What about your time? You know, did you feel like you waste any of your time?" And I said, "Well, not intentionally, but I did spend an hour and a half today looking for an image of a pint of beer to use as a promotion." That can happen. So, you know, rather than spend that time, sort of wasted time, so to speak, if every bit of your time was spent supporting your niche, then ultimately it's gonna serve you better in the long run. So I know short-term gain for for a long-term reward. So yeah, look, focus on the people that you want to help and drill down to that individual's hair color, what hobbies they'll have, what they like to eat for breakfast. If you understand that, then your marketing and your message is so direct that everything else stems from there. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, to me, it makes perfect sense. And I want to bring up another conflict of interest then, kind of in line with that. And it's, we spoke to a celebrity trainer who was also very much kind of like a consultant and expert just in general in personal training. And one of the things he said he used to do in the past, when you talk about this conflict of interest between results and income, etc., one of the things he had mentioned is that if he had someone in his book of business who wasn't dedicated, he would prefer to get rid of that person so that he wasn't just getting income for someone who wasn't going to show results, because he saw that as a huge part of his brand image, that he wants the people that are working for him to see the changes, live the change, etc. Curious to get your thoughts on that, and if you would do the same.
I absolutely, because I am also, I mean, as well as running my consultancy business, I've also started at my own boot camp recently. And so I'm back to the floor, so to speak, myself, and I've got a small bunch of clients that I feel really passionate about helping. Now, I also, I feel that they're a reflection of my work, and when they don't adhere to the program and they don't get the results, then it's a reflection of me. My job is to support that person, but I get very sort of passionate about it, I suppose. I think as a trainer you do that you really want to help people, but if they're not adhering to your plan, or for some reason they just don't gel with you and you're not going to get the results from them, then actually it is better to have another trainer look after them. I mean, ultimately the smart PTs will probably recruit trainers underneath them and pass those clients on to trainers, so they are still making an element of income from those clients. But I had that experience even back when I first started, and I was getting really, really busy, and I had a particular client that I remember, and hopefully he's not watching, bless him, but he wanted 5 sessions a week. But he used to brag to me that he'd been to the pub on a Tuesday night and drank 20 pints of lager. So on a Wednesday, he would tell me, he was a big lad, he would tell me the stories about how much he drank. And I was putting the guy on a plan. This is what you need to do, client. And every week he'd be telling me how he'd not done what I'd asked him to do. But then I get all, we have a weekly check-in, a weekly weigh-in. I'm excited for you. And then I feel accountable when you don't lose weight, because that's my job. I'm in charge of your results. But when you're not adhering to the plan, then it really isn't my fault. So I think it's important to work with people, absolutely, that want to work hard and will adhere to your plan. I mean, it's actually one of the questions I ask now. And in fact, very recently, I have built into my own process a 10-minute, I don't know what you want to call it, a discovery call, if you like, or an audition. So 10 minutes, let's have a chat. Let's see if we're a right fit for each other. And then if we are, then I'll progress them on to the full 60-minute consultation, where we'll effectively do an onboarding potentially. But 10 minutes is about right. And I think it's a good process to have. The other side of things, it puts you back in the seat, in terms of the controlling the conversation as a trainer, because you're effectively making a decision whether you want to work with that person, which changes the vibe of the conversation, so that you're not that desperate person trying to sell PT. You're actually trying to work out whether I want to work with you. And I think that's an important process to adopt if you haven't already.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, no, one other thing that hurt me about that statement is trying to figure out 20 pints, how many pounds that adds up to. That's got to be difficult for the pocket as well.
Well, I'm not. Well, yeah, but this was a while ago. But yeah, that's a lot of money. You can also work. What 20 pints is what? If in a pint of lager, I believe there's about 150 calories. So he's drinking. He's certainly 2 days worth of nutritional consumption in one night. So no.
Exactly. And I'm thinking of this too, is these are great points, and just thinking about, because I know Kalen wants to get into a little bit of, and I'll pass this over to Kalen after this question. He wants to go into the facility a little bit more, but thinking about personal training of the future. So just think about what it will look like in 5 to 10 years from your perspective. We've basically already seen changes over the past few years, etc. You had mentioned to me and Kaylin just earlier that there are some things that you already see happening. For instance, personal trainers need a product is a specific thing that you had mentioned earlier. So I was curious, like, if you're a new trainer, and I know you like to specialize in people who've just got certifications and really help them grow, are there maybe some things in personal training that maybe exist now that you wouldn't necessarily educate them too much on now because you think they might be a thing of the past? And then vice versa. Or on the other side of things, do you think things that are not necessarily a big deal at the moment, but they're going to be coming into the industry in the next year or two, that you would recommend them kind of pick up and be early adapters to? So those kind of two extremes.
Let's see if I can. There's about 6 questions there. So
want me to give you one more?
No. Let me see if I can remember the first one. I tell you what, I feel that I have been kind of spoiled to some degree as with Virtue Gym. No one's paying me to say this, by the way, but the without having understanding what Virtue Gym could do in terms of supporting when we talk about online PT, I think there's a couple of ways you can look at this. I think that irrespective of there being this online PT offering, just having an app that allows you to track your client's progress, that allows you to help them with their nutrition, that allows you to interact with them, on a social media sort of platform. What Virtue Gym does for certainly for me as a business, where I was spoiled, I suppose, is I've sort of started to think, look, that's some kind of given now. That those I wouldn't expect, if I'd engaged a personal trainer myself now, I wouldn't expect them to be sending me an Excel spreadsheet. I wouldn't expect them to be sending me a Word document with an exercise routine on it. I wouldn't expect a social media, and I've seen this, by the way, a social media post with about 6 exercises written down and a couple of reps and that's my workout. I would expect more. I'd expect that you'd have an app, and I'd expect you'd have a way of tracking my progress that allows me to engage. So I think for me as a I would expect the future of personal training to involve some kind of app. Now, look, I'm aware that there are a dozen different sort of tools there that run alongside Virtue Gym, but I don't have first-hand experience of any of those. I have first-hand experience of Virtue Gym and its offering, and I think for me this is a fantastic tool to reduce the amount of time required from a trainer's perspective, and one to professionalize what you do as your offering. So I think the future for me, whether online PT becomes the go-to for trainers coming into the industry, I'm not convinced of that. I think traditional online PT, which is effectively probably suits the marketeer that Kaylin talked about initially, who enjoys sitting in front of a computer, enjoys that that kind of work ethic, I suppose, then great. But I think the majority of trainers coming into the industry haven't changed for the last 20 years either. They got into the industry because they like training. They like face-to-face interaction. So I think where I see the future of PT is that you have tools that professionalize what you do. So whether it's like we've discussed, a nutrition tracker, a way to push people workouts that's professional, a way to push somebody a workout, by the way, that then I don't need to explain how to do it because there's a little avatar. Or and do I need to be recording my own videos and bespoking my app that much that they needed to see me doing the exercise? Or does it make more sense to have that already pre-built into the system, because it's a lot of work to do that. So I think absolutely the future of PT is working with technology to make your service a more slick service, if that makes any sense. I don't know if I've just answered just the first question or all six.
I think you got all six.
Awesome. And maybe now we can make a little bit of a transition then, as Derek was mentioning, to the facilities themselves. And you were alluding to this earlier when you were talking about how a personal trainer, when they start, they should look at the business first and understand the business. And you mentioned as well that within many gyms that they develop these programs where after 1, 2, 3, 4 months that a member is supposed to be well on their way to success. And there's been a lot of talk about that. What are the best onboarding programs for members in order to drive various results, whether the result is we're trying to have a high member lifetime value, or the goal is to try and upsell them PT during the time that they're there. Is there, from the time that you worked within facilities, I know you've worked with over 50 plus facilities and seeing a bunch of different member onboardings. Is there one that you see as kind of best practice for this is a phenomenal template for a facility to follow in order to make sure that the member either is going to achieve the highest member lifetime or upselling personal training?
I would probably defer that question to somebody whose specific field it was to understand the member journey. I mean, I have my own opinions and I'm happy to share them. But I think there are probably smarter people than me that can answer that question. However, in and again, I'm sure this isn't just the UK, but in the UK, the PT penetration in terms of the average gym is less than 1%. So less than 1% of your members will take up personal training. At Exercise for Less, I was heavily involved in building a program that effectively you could call it group PT. We called it a transformation camp, and I think this is what you alluded to earlier in terms of the video that you'd seen me talking about and describing, and how Virtue Gym had supported us with that product. For us, that gave us a PT penetration of around about 7%, which is brilliant. What we did see is that those people tended to stay with the club longer. They were achieving their results because they became educated, but more importantly, they formed a community. And I think there's the education piece, but I think the more powerful than any other part of the journey, I suppose, is creating a community, because that's what creates accountability. It creates the right kind of atmosphere, and that's what keeps your members effectively coming back for more. So where a good fitness business has done work to create that community, you see that those members certainly become more sticky. You see that within personal training. The average personal training client stays a member of a gym so much longer because they're achieving their results. They have that accountability, and effectively, even if they only know that one personal trainer, then they have an element of that community because they know somebody, and it's about not letting that person down when you go to the gym, or or not, sorry, not letting that person down if you decide not to go. You know, I remember one of my first clients who I used to train at 6:30 every morning on a Wednesday. I trained her for seven years, once a week for 7 years. And I remember asking her about, I think it was probably about year 6. I said, so, you know, I think you must know everything I know right now. You know, why do you still keep training? And she said, the key thing for me, without being disrespectful, Carl, is that you're reliable. You're always here at that time. And I know I don't like getting out of bed, so I don't want to let you down. So bless her, you know, that's what got her coming to the gym, was having that somebody there that she didn't want to let down. So I think that's quite an important piece of the sort of retention puzzle within any sort of good fitness business. But yeah, I think you don't. I wouldn't advise that as part of that member journey that you almost forced personal training onto somebody, because you alienate 99% of your membership base if only 1% are typically interested. However, I do think the support and offering that sort of advice and maybe giving them options at the beginning at point of sale, where they have effectively the journey maybe looks something like, you know, you can join for no support, or you get say minimal support, which maybe looks like an induction, show around the gym, an orientation session. Medium support, which might be a group PT session, that might be a 14-day trial potentially to get them really involved, or one-to-one PT, and giving people options at the beginning. I think that a lot of businesses miss a trick there, because we're so hungry to get somebody joined up that we don't give them that full array of options, and that's when people start to slip through the net, because they don't get what they promised, or what they were promised. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things that you mentioned in there that we could jump into. So maybe just kind of peeling it back, point by point, that what you were discussing. The last thing that you mentioned was with your client. She had a interesting form of motivation in terms of being able to stick with her routine. And I think that's essentially one of the biggest things that you as a fitness brand, as a trainer, as a facility, that you set off in order to solve for a client or a member, is how do you fix their motivation so that they stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you typically see as some of the other tools of motivation that a trainer in a facility can use in order to make sure that their clients are sticking with their programs and have adherence to these programs?
I think you need to understand the needs of your client, because we all want motivating in a different way. So one of the key questions that I ask on my intake form is how do you like to be motivated? And whether that is the person that likes a detailed program, and likes to understand how many reps, how many sets, what days am I training, what time should I be training best, and that all that detail. Because for some people that's what they need. They actually don't want me to talk to them either. They just want the detail. There's the other people that don't give me that detail, because I'm not going to look at it. I just want you to talk to me and make me laugh. There's the other people that maybe just need an imaginary arm of support around them, to give them some gentle coaching. They just need to feel comfortable in the surroundings. And then there's the other people that you can swear at, shout at, abuse them in the right kind of way, because they wouldn't train if they wouldn't be motivated if you didn't. So from a trainer perspective, I think I always ask the question, so then I know. There's nothing worse than shouting at somebody that doesn't want to be shouted at. There's nothing worse than praising somebody who doesn't work that way. And there's nothing worse than giving somebody a load of detail who's just going to throw it in the bin, because that doesn't work for you or them either. So I think, and you can't do that en masse in a fitness business. And I appreciate your question was more towards the business. But what you can do in a fitness business is get to know your members. You can make sure that your initiatives align with what you're trying to achieve. And if you strongly believe that that retention deserves your focus, then sometimes it's just a basic hello and a goodbye. I was talking to somebody on a podcast the other day that one of the first commercial gyms that I trained at, that and actually where I ended up getting my first personal training role, every single time that you left that gym, they wouldn't just say goodbye. They'd compliment you in some way. Like they'd noticed you'd been training arms today, or they'd noticed that you were wearing shorts, so you must have been training legs, and they said something complimentary that tied in with what you'd been doing, and you walked away thinking, "Wow, I'm going to go back there." And I went back and ran the place for 7 years, and I just don't see that in a lot of places nowadays. I know at my previous company that we had to put an initiative in at one point to force the hand of the receptionist to just make them say hello and goodbye. You shouldn't have to do that, but it makes a huge difference to your membership base. In some cases, some of your members might not have spoken to anybody all day. There are people that live alone, that are in the later years, so to speak, who don't see a lot of people and just use the gym as a place to do that. And potentially they've come to the gym on that day and their mates haven't shown up. So they had a workout on their own, and they left, and guess what? Nobody even said goodbye. That's why your members leave.
Yeah, it's incredible how a lot of these things, when you talk about it, it just makes perfect sense. Like earlier you were mentioning a trainer who's walking the floor. The best thing that they can be doing is having meaningful conversations. Now we're talking about a front desk person who should be at the least greeting the members when they're coming in and saying goodbye when they're going. And these things, often make a lot of sense when you're at the high level and discussing some of these concepts. But it's super interesting how, if I'm talking to a personal trainer who's at a facility, they're often intimidated by the floor, and they have no clue what to do.
Yeah.
And they feel like it's a waste of their time in that moment, or they're scared of it.
Yeah.
What would you advise as far as the best way for a trainer in order to take that time and make it as productive as possible? If you were to kind of break it down for somebody who's new and make it a bit more pragmatic for them.
Yeah, I'll go straight back to the course that I bought. That it still resonates with me now. And that this I want to say it's maybe 16 years ago since I bought this course. But the terminology is purpose and belonging. So when you're walking the floor, have a purpose and belonging to what you're doing. So don't walk the floor randomly, and let's take that all the way back, because you will be walking the floor randomly if you've just got started and no one has a conversation with you about what you should be doing and how to make it work. The lucky ones will walk the floor and like talking to people and become that go-to person because they enjoy having conversations with people, but we're not all like that. So you're right, walking the floor can be a daunting prospect because you've not got a purpose. So give yourself a purpose. And first off, the purpose should be your job is to book somebody in for a chat, and whatever you want to call that, whether I call it a consultation, but whether you whatever your conversation is with whichever person you end up speaking to on the gym floor, your end result should be to either ask that question or get a booking. And at the same time, you don't want to be walking around just asking people to get booked in for consultations because it's too abrupt. So give yourself a reason to talk to people. So, an example that I came up with was for myself at the time was I was going to create a monthly newsletter that would have some nutrition advice, an article. Nowadays it's an ebook, isn't it? Or it's a recipe book, something that gives me a reason to go up to somebody in the gym and say, "Hi, how are you doing? I didn't know whether you might be interested or not, but I've got this free thing, whatever it is. Would you be interested in getting my free ebook, or would you be interested in receiving my free newsletter? If you would, then that's great. I just need your email address." And as you're starting to type the email address or write the email address, and I would expect you to be typing that now as opposed to writing as I was, you then ask the question, "So how are you getting on with your training?" Yeah, I'm doing all right. Great, okay. And it sort of leads from there. So that becomes but the more you do it, and then again, I talked earlier about having a process. You'll define your own script. No one should tell you what you should be saying, but what you should have is some clear goals. That your conversation icebreaker, if you will, is your free product. You're in between that, you're going to get some basic data capture, you're going to have a conversation, and then after that you are absolutely going to position yourself to ask the question whether you'd like to get booked in for a free consultation, so I can sit down with you, understand your goals, and see if there's anything I can help you with. Probably doesn't have to cost you anything. So having that purpose and having a script effectively is super important. And if you don't, then I don't think any manager should tell you to go out and walk the floor, because that's another thing that's just going to break you. I think a good manager of a fitness business will support you with that conversation, will support you with that process, and then ultimately you'll be successful. You won't be successful if you just get a boot in your backside every now and again and get out on the gym floor and talk to people, because that will just, as I say, just break you.
Yeah, I'm curious. Because within my role here at the company, one of the things that I would do is I would coach the sales team as well. And when I'm hearing this, one of the things that I think of, and I'm curious to see if you would agree with it, or if it works out differently within a fitness facility. But with this person, I would look at it and say, you have to start off bringing the value first, which the freebie was a great one. It's something that they're able to participate in. The next thing that I would tell them as well with the question is that you're not trying to pitch personal training in its entirety. You're trying to just simply get curiosity of the session itself. And then with that, you need a way in order to be able to have something enticing for them to be able to show up to that consultation. Is there that enticing piece of the consultation within this as well? Is there something they receive from it that is part of that, or how does that middle piece look before the full?
Yeah, it depends. I think it depends depends how busy you are. And when you first get started, your hook, so to speak, or the enticing, or the enticer for your show ratio, so to speak, might well be a free session, free half-hour session, free 45-minute session. Depends how much time you've got. As you get busier, I got busier. I stopped giving that away. I just didn't have the time to deliver it. What I did have the time to do was to sit down with you and understand your needs and your goals. But that you build confidence with that, the more experience you get. So when you first get started, I don't think the sales process if you're selling gym memberships, the sales process is exactly the same. You just replace the product element from gym membership to personal training. It's the same process. I mean, what I used to do with my guys when I was a manager at the facility, I used to invite all my personal trainers into the sales meetings. And certainly when you were a new PT, you'd attend all the sales training because it was hugely relevant. And I think that's what made a huge difference to the amount of trainers that I ended up having in my facility, because you don't grow a team of personal trainers by just recruiting. You put the effort into looking after them so they flourish, grow. Hence we get 20 PTs in a club. I know many clubs, certainly in my experience, that couldn't get more than 2 trainers in the club. And for me, I can only blame that on the the lack of support that manager must have shown the team. And it's so easy to do. You know, I'm not suggesting either that you have to double up the work. Just bring them into your sales meetings, because that's what's missing. That it's that process and understanding the whole process that's missing from the qualifications. But the other side of things is I might treat them a little bit differently though, because personal trainers aren't necessarily salespeople, and they typically don't get into personal training because they're good at sales or because they want to be salespeople. And a good salesperson has potentially got the skin of a rhino and can take a load of no's without getting upset about it. Where, you know, maybe me as a personal trainer, you say no to me 2 or 3 times, and eventually I'm like, oh, I'm upset now. It's going to take me a day or 2 to sort of recover, and then I'll give it another go. You know, there is a I'm thinking of the word, not skill set, but it's a personality trait that makes you a great salesman, in my opinion. And some of those things can't be trained. Some of them can. But yeah, I certainly would maybe treat them. You know, you're inviting a trainer into your training. You're telling your salespeople they have to turn up. Maybe that's the key difference.
Yeah. Another bold statement that I'll make, don't necessarily agree with it, but I think can bring up some interesting conversation related to this is fitness facilities are doing a terrible job of enabling personal trainers in order to be able to be successful. And the proof of that is that there are so many personal trainers who drop out for the reasons that we've talked about earlier. And then additionally, because of the fact that they have fear in order to walk the floor, and the facility's job should be to arm them with the skills in order to be able to feel comfortable walking the floor, doing those things, and the skills to be successful within getting clients. Do you agree with that? Disagree with it? Do you think it's on the trainer themselves? How do you kind of look at that?
In short, I agree with you. I do. I think it depends where you sat. And if you'd have asked me, you know, this maybe a year ago, I maybe would have blamed it on the training provider, because I was working for a fitness business who, as much as we want to build a you know, an adequate induction period for the trainers, which I headed up and I did, it's never enough. You can, you know, and what we expect, I suppose, from the industry is we're expecting entrepreneurial, self-employed individuals who have applied for this role and want to be successful. And that's not the case either in the majority. So there's something missing, and who's accountable? Is it the training provider, and is it or is it the industry? But there's definitely something broken. Hence, you know, my business is all about bridging that gap. There shouldn't really be a space for me to do this. You know, if we got it right, my real opinion is that it should be built into the qualification, because as soon as you qualified, you should have the skill set to be able to go out and do what you need to do. The qualifications will have their own sort of story, and I've had multiple conversations with training providers that, you know, feel that their hands are tied in terms of the framework that they deliver for whatever reason. So then you're going to push it back onto the industry again. But look, what about if that PT doesn't go for a job in the industry? You know, or say they're sort of a commercial setting, they go out and try to PT outside and try to run a business on their own, they still haven't got the skill set, but then they've got no support whatsoever. So unless it comes from the training provider, then we're still going to miss a trick. So I think you're right. I think the fitness businesses effectively aren't, and this is not all of them. There are you know, and arguably things have improved drastically since I was a PT. You know, I think the support element is so much better. I mean, even think about, you know, the app that we provided out all our trainers access to. that they had that. So the support element has dramatically improved, but it's still not where it needs to be.
Do you think it in some way, shape, or form has to do with maybe distractions, in the sense of each individual, or maybe the trainer, or maybe the gym has their own goals that distract them potentially from like a common goal together, that they're trying to go for, I guess more personalized goals, and it causes some kind of distraction or lack of focus?
Maybe not so much. Yeah, I think the real question, I suppose, from a fitness business's perspective is why do you recruit personal trainers? What do you want them for? What do you want them to do? And once you define that and you understand that, then maybe that should be the starting point. If the reason you're recruiting personal trainers is to provide free gym floor cover, then that's maybe where it goes wrong, because we're trying to leverage something here that that maybe we're not going to get without being really transparent about it. Do we want personal trainers to help retain our members, which is often something that's discussed? Well, with the best will in the world, you're retaining 1% of my membership base, so you're a shit tool if that's the reason. So it's not that, is it? Typically, it's to provide an element of support, and maybe it's to tick some health and safety boxes. So you've got people available to assist. So really, we need to look at the modeling, and if that is the case, if you want people to cover the gym floor, we should be paying them to do that. We should be paying them a wage, and maybe that's the role of a fitness consultant, and you're specifically recruiting somebody to do that particular role. A personal trainer is a self-employed individual who is there to effectively create a business for themselves, not really do anything for you as a fitness business. So if you understand that from the outset, then I think you end up having certainly a better result in terms of what you're wanting. I mean, yeah, far too many times we recruit personal trainers, and I think as managers we're expecting them to do this, that, and the other, and then we're kicking them all over the place each day. Don't stand on reception, come out of the fitness office, go speak to people. If you're self-employed and and that was your role, and you're fully accountable for building your business, you'd kind of be wanting to do those things that aligned with that goal, right?
Yeah, proactively.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, excellent, Carl. I know you've given us a ton of great content already. I'm going to ask you one final question, and in true Derek fashion, it's actually 2 questions in one, but not
Love
6, I promise. And this is something we actually ask everyone that we interview on the podcast and webinars, just to give maybe a nugget of advice to the listener. So curious, what is the best advice you have ever received? And then additionally, what is the best advice you've ever given?
And that one deserves an element of thought. Maybe you should have emailed me that beforehand, which you didn't, by the way.
Yeah, that was Kalen's responsibility. He must have forgot.
I'm sorry, you guys are breaking up here.
You emailed me 4 questions. I didn't realize that would actually be built into just one sentence, Derek. I guess I've had a lot of good advice thrown at me sort of along the way. I think I'm going to settle for something just at the top of my head. Was do the things that you do the things that you enjoy, and take that as you will, and also I suppose take your own advice, because if it's any good, it'll be just as good for you. But the first thing about doing the things you enjoy, if you do the things you enjoy, not obviously you enjoy them, but you approach a task in a completely different way. You'll complete that task with enthusiasm. You'll complete that task, probably a lot, with a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? Muster, I suppose, and probably that you'll end up with a vastly better outcome, because you really enjoyed the task. And there are lots of tasks that potentially. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, in life, or in your certainly in your fitness business. So take online PT, because that's what we're talking about. There might be elements of your business that you're not good at. You're not great at. So maybe the marketing element's not your thing, but you really enjoy the communication. You really enjoy creating, great artwork, and you enjoy the workouts, but you just don't enjoy the marketing. Then outsource it. Get somebody else to do that. It could be that in your life setting, you. And my wife will tell you, she'll give me little tasks to do throughout the day that clearly I don't enjoy doing, because she has to keep nagging at me for me to do them. So get somebody else to do those bits for you, which means you can focus on the things that you do like doing. So, for example, doing the ironing might not be my fun place. So having somebody do the ironing while I focus on my business means I can afford to pay that person to do the ironing and some. So do the things that you enjoy, and allow yourself the time to do that. So hopefully that made a bit of sense.
Absolutely, and I can relate, because as you can see, my wrinkly shirt that I don't like ironing either. But no, I really like that advice, and you're a testament to the success of it as well, right? Because you had mentioned at the beginning of our conversation how your partner noticed that you weren't passionate about your career in that moment, and you switched to something that you were much more passionate about, and you've clearly been quite successful changing and doing something passionate. So now you're quite successful and doing something you're passionate about. I think, most people would say that's a win-win any day of the week.
Yeah. And you could take that as far back as well as talking about what we talked about earlier, which is that niche element. So, training the clients that you like training will mean that you deliver your sessions with passion, and you'll do such a great job that people will naturally be attracted to you. If you train clients that you don't enjoy training, then it can really be an absolute vacuum of your attention and ultimately your mood, which then has a negative effect on the next person that you're looking after. So it absolutely makes sense to try and focus on the things that you enjoy doing, because you're doing better. Concept Fitness Consultancy, the has three arms to it, so to speak. So we've got the qualifications. So we have a qualification currently that sits at less than £1,600, which covers your level 2, your level 3, and included in that is a 6-week business boot camp. That I'm going to call this the complete qualification, because this is the qualification that I've been talking about, for the past 40 to 50 minutes with you guys, is that this is the qualification that outside of that six-week period, after you've completed your qualification, you're going to have an understanding of your brand. You're going to have an understanding of what you should be charging. You can have an understanding of how to deliver a boot camp if that's what you want to do. But you're certainly going to understand your services. You're going to understand the industry. Now, there will be trainers that are in the middle, that have already completed the qualification, that haven't had that kind of support. Then I'm also running a 6-week business boot camp as a separate service, so to speak. And then there's the one-to-one coaching. So for the more advanced trainer that may be thinking now that, and I'll tell you what might be really interesting is that any trainer now that has been operating successfully over the last sort of 13 months may be in a position now where they want to move things forward. So look, give me a shout.
So another question that I wanted to ask, based off of what you were saying on how a personal trainer should be following a process within their business. I think many personal trainers think that they're following a process, and they believe that they're going out and putting their best foot forward day in and day out. Is there maybe a sign, Carl, that a personal trainer can use to identify within themselves that maybe they're actually not following a process, and it's not as systematized as it should be?
A sign. I suppose a sign would potentially be that your business isn't moving as fast as you expect it to. I think initially you want to, before you get started in any business, you should put together a plan. So in its basic terms, a 90-day business plan makes sense. And once you've structured that 90-day business plan, you've got you end up creating yourself daily targets, potentially hourly targets. But ultimately, at the end of it, you'll also have expectations in terms of your conversions, how many sales you're going to make, how many clients you expect to take on this week, this next week. If you haven't got that, then I'd urge you to put something together. It's absolutely something I can support with. If you have got that, then absolutely you will know whether you're following a process or not. Ultimately, when I first started, I didn't know there was a process. I didn't understand what a process was. So I wouldn't have needed any particular sign other than the fact that I just wasn't making the income. For me, I got to a point where I felt like I was doing okay, but I wasn't generating the income that I needed. I'd had an employed role and was earning a certain amount of income, and now I had a self-employed role, and I wasn't. So there was my sign. When I learned that there was a process, and when I put that process together, it made such a huge difference to my career. I went from a 7-session-a-week business to a 40-session-a-week business in 2 months.
Wow.
And 40 sessions was actually, I think I want to say probably about 5 or 6 grand a year more than I was earning in my previous role. So that, as a definition of success for me, I'm doing something I enjoy and I'm earning more. Win-win.
Yeah, that's incredible, and that's exactly what Concept Fitness Consultancy is about, is taking your experience there on how you've gone, how you were able to grow your business, and making other trainers successful within their business as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about Concept Fitness Consultancy and the program? I just
Yeah,
wanted to ask that because I know that you. Yeah, go ahead.
no, and I definitely want to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, the name in itself. Somebody asked me today, well, what is it? Where do you get the name from? Does that make any sense? Well, I tell you, for me, I was tired of seeing, and I've maybe made the mistake of signing up to a lot of different personal training coaches who now email me, I want to say hourly, with offers of transforming my business for as small an investment as £10,000. This will happen. This will happen. And I know what I'm going to get back. I'm going to get back a script that tells me I must do this. I must do this. I must follow this path. And when I don't, then that's the reason for my lack of success. What my business is about, it's about your concept. So as a personal trainer, when you start out, we all have our own idea of what it's going to be like and what we want to do and who we want to help. So my business is about one-to-one coaching. My business is about sitting down with you, the trainer, and working on your business model and your business concept. And I suppose ultimately it's about you telling me what you want to do with your business and me helping guide you along the way. It's not about is me dictating to you, you must do this, you must follow this, you must call your business this, and why have you done this, why have you done that? It's about shaping your business the way you want to have it shaped.
That's great. And if somebody's listening and wants to be able to reach out to you so that they can learn a little bit more, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, there's a website that should be easy enough to find, which is literally conceptfitnessconsultancy.co.uk. If you contact me via the website, I've also got a Facebook group right now that I'm adding free content into daily. A lot of it's about the sales process. A lot of it's about aimed at trainers just getting started. So that's absolutely free service. And again, Concept Fitness PT Forum is the name of the group. It's free to join. I do have a couple of rules, but once you join, I'll let you know what they are.
Nice. I hope they're like the rules of Fight Club. The first rule.
Honestly, they absolutely are. You can edit it out, but the first rule of Concept Fitness Consultancy Forum is you must tell people about Concept Fitness Consultancy Forum. Failure to do so will result in a forfeit or eviction.
I love it. I love it.
This is great. Carl, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. This is awesome.
A pleasure speaking with you, Carl.
You too, guys. Enjoyed it.